Okay, so today out on the Honda CRF300 Rally. It's a 2021 bike with 3,500 miles stock, apart from the TKC80 Continental rear tyre. Still got the IRC on the front, just got a Rally Raid rear rack, and then just a few bits of tools, some tape and tyre wraps in there just in case. Navigating off a phone. We're in North Devon, going to ride a few lanes that I already know just to warm up, and then hit some new ones that I've found using the TRS green road map, digital road map, which is a really good source of finding new trails in your local area. Nice soft gentle lane to begin with. It's good to get warmed up this way. I think if you start hitting anything you don't know or too tricky to begin with, it's when you're a bit tight and your muscles are tight. And when also your confidence is low. I think trail riding, a lot of it's just confidence in the bike and your ability, and sometimes you've got to spend just a little bit of time back on the easier stuff to get back into the flow. Certainly if it's not something you do regularly, and like a lot of people, I find me excuses not to go out in these riding conditions, you know, when it's wet and dark. So I've not been out as much as I would have liked. That's an easy first green lane. Going to use my map. It's not very secure on there, hopefully. I've got a terrible habit of losing phones. So, whoops, a daisy. What's that car? Busy. So we'll go and find the next lane, see how we get on. We've got some surprising blue sky today, 2nd of January 2023. Been a bit cold and a bit wet, hasn't it? Makes it interesting on the lanes, and even riding these back lanes which are just muddy and slippy and greasy definitely make it interesting. You can tell when I meet oncoming cars and I just touch a bit of back brake that it's very slippy, very slimy, so you've got to definitely take it easy. But it's a great way to feel more confident on lanes, or riding in general, riding this sort of stuff. The soft suspension on this CRF Rally, I think it's what it's notorious for, really, being a bike that really, to push on with, you have to upgrade the suspension as soon as you buy it, which is a bit of a shame. It's a shame that Honda have undersprung it to such an extent, but on the same token, what it means in stock trim, that it's very manageable for a lot of people who might be intimidated by a tall trail bike. With a soft suspension as standard, it makes it easier to get your feet down, and I think that might rob the bike of some of its ultimate ability. It makes it a little bit more usable for, you know, your average novice rider who's starting out for the first time. So I would say if you bought your 300 Rally or your L, don't immediately go out and upgrade the suspension until you feel more confident, because it's nice to be able to get a foot down very quick and easy on the stock bike. And the danger when you put a tall uprated shock on is it makes it very unmanageable, or just very tall, so difficult to get on. Rally Raid up in Northampton, they do a shock which retains uprates the performance, increases the performance of the bike, does so without massively increasing the saddle height. So I think that's a nice compromise. So we've got a lovely lane here. There's quite a few around here that are like this. Quite long, a little bit muddy, not overly treacherous, so you've just got to be on your toes a little bit. Obviously riding solo, so I drop it back a tenth or two, which I think in a way probably keeps you safer than when you're riding as a pack and you're upping your pace to keep up with others, or you know, you've got a false sense of security when you're with others. On your own, you know that if you have an accident down here, you might be stuck here for a while, so you back it off a little bit and probably enjoy the scenery a little bit more as well. Just taking it steady around the corners. You never know who you're going to meet, whether you've got other bikers, horses, walkers, tractors. Tractors are a big you know, big obstacle around these parts. Lovely little long lane though, this. Nice. And now who's this manageable for? I would say anybody who's just bought an L or a Rally or a Himalayan probably could do this. It's going to be easier in summer when it's drier. But we've got no deep ruts or anything too steep. Just watching these cambers. What gear am I in? I'm in third, so pretty tall geared. I'm not working the engine too hard. Trying to keep my head up, look through the lane. That helps you pick a better line, because it's easy to, certainly when you're starting out, to put your head down to look at the immediate rut, and then that means you've not prepped yourself very well for the ruts that are coming, and you end up on a bad line, or you don't anticipate gear changes or anything like that. So trying to keep those arms soft. I could already feel that lack of fitness shining through a little bit. And then coming out, always try and keep it quiet when I come out near a house. I don't want to antagonise anyone. So just to show you this green road map that you get when you join the TRF, essentially it's a interactive OS map with all the lanes marked, all the legal lanes, and this is kept up to date by the rights of way officers and the TRF members who update this to make sure everything you're riding is legal. It's a great way of finding lanes in your area that you didn't know of, and also getting clarity on them ones that you weren't sure about. It doesn't overly work too well on the phone. It's a bit clunky, a bit slow, but on a desktop computer or a tablet it's really good. And then what I would do is go on to What3Words, find the relevant point there where the lane starts, and then put a link on. I use Google Maps, set up a Google map that's sadly not working today for some reason, and then drop a marker on that lane and put the What3Words link, and then I click on the What3Words link, and I can navigate to it using What3Words. As it currently stands, because that Google Maps for some reason isn't opening, I've just sent myself an email with the What3Words links on it. Obviously this means you've got to have signal, or you can download What3Words to work offline. So I'm going to put, there we go, and then navigate to it, and that's going to take me to the start of the next lane. So yeah, the green road map in conjunction with What3Words is how I navigate. Obviously there's lots of people with who use different apps, and please suggest those in the comments if you know a really good app that's easy to plot a route, and then you can put your sat nav or whatever on the bars and just follow without having to interact with it. So 4 minutes to the next lane. I'll see you there. Okay, another little lane here. Nice easy way, this one. You can see what I'm looking for there. Public byway. If it was a bridle way, it wouldn't be legal for motorised vehicles. Because it's a public byway, it means that it is. Looks like there's been a few other bikes out today. So just along here, with it being a nice easy track, it is a lane you could sit down on, and there's a bit of a debate as to whether you should sit down or stand up, or when you should stand up. I mean, personally, I think you've got a lot more control and input into the bike, and comfort for that matter, when you stood up. You can use your body and your knees and your legs and your arms as added suspension. You've got better visibility down the trail, and I think you can go a little bit harder if you wanted to. So for me, it's a no-brainer to stand up. But for people who aren't maybe as fit or as confident, then there's nothing wrong with sitting down. And I'd say on a CRF it's a good bike for sit down riding, simply because it's got such a good amount of suspension travel as standard. So the bike will absorb these ruts and these bumps without having to use your arms or your legs too much. Something like the Himalayan or the KTM390, that's going to struggle a little bit, and you're going to feel it through your spine, just because you haven't got the suspension travel to absorb it. So yeah, nothing wrong with sitting down, but for me, standing up is far more natural, gives me better control, better visibility, and when you're tackling trickier stuff, to me it's the only thing you can do. You've got to stand up. And when you're stood up, you want your pegs in the middle of your boot, You've got soft knees, not straight legs, but soft knees. Elbows up to give a bit of width in the shoulders, and then head up. At the minute I've got my right boot just covering that back brake, because down here if I need a bit of brake I'm going to use that back brake. I'm not going to touch the front. And it's a bit of an extra skill you've got to learn from road riding, because obviously the road instructors, when you pass your test, they're all going to teach you to only use your front brake. But off-road, that's a bit of a lethal approach. Nothing wrong with using a bit of front if you're already on the back. The back's going to stabilise the bike. But if you just go heavy on the front, it's going to compress the front suspension, and it's going to overwhelm that front tyre, and it's going to wash out from under you. So yeah, it's gentle back brake application, then front, for me anyway, is how I tend to brake off-road anyway. Alright, next lane. Okay, we've got the four-wheelers coming down here as well, bless their souls. Nice little track, this one. Always got to bear in mind in winter you've not got the light to highlight the contours in the track quite so much. It all looks a lot flatter and darker. So you really got to start looking and really pick out those camber changes, those softer patches of mud, those big stones or whatever it is that's going to trip you up. As long as you've seen them and anticipate them, you're alright. If you hit them blind, that's when it can catch you out. I'm just going to graft across to the left. Yeah, so again, for this level of trail riding, you know, do you need to change the suspension? I don't think you do. I think it's nice, soft, manageable, supple. I think it would have been nice for Honda to put some better adjustment, or easier, let's say, easy adjustment on it. A bit steep down here, you got to watch it. And just lean over. So we're looking for camber. I can see, so because we're riding across the slope, it's going to want to drag me down to the right hand side. So I'm going to pick that line to begin with, because you're better picking that lower side of the trail rather than letting the terrain try and slide you down to the lower part of the terrain, if that makes sense. Because camber is your worst enemy really when trail riding. I've got my weight back, first gear. Looks like they've had some bikes up here. Good climb coming up there by the looks of it. Different challenges going up and down. Obviously when you're going up, gravity is almost a bonus, because it controls your power, it harnesses your speed a little bit more. On the way down, it's your brakes and your engine braking that are going to do it. So I've just got light braking pressure, got a low gear, second gear, got the clutch out. Going down towards the main road, there's always a bit of interest here. You think, where does that trail go? It's a nice little trail, that. Pretty challenging, you know, not straightforward, but a good little trail, that. Perfect for a CRF, Himalayan even. You'd take a bigger bike up there, but it's what it comes back down to. What's the right bike for trail riding? Well, something light and manageable. You know, we can all have a go with the big bikes and they can be successful, but coming out on your own like today, do it on a GS12 or Africa Twin, you're really just, you know, you're asking for trouble. And I've been there myself, where I've had to ring people up to come and help me get the bike out or upright when I've been out trail riding on my own, and on the GS12 that I used to own. The CRF is probably the upper limit weight wise of what I'd want to be out here on my own riding. If I was out here on the CT110, I'd have absolutely no concerns whatsoever, because one of those light little bikes, even if you fell off, you're not going to be going very fast, or you're not going to fall a long way. But this CRF can do you damage if it falls on you. Equally, if it starts to go on you and you try and catch it, it can be a difficult bike to catch. So we've got some wet exposed stone here. Just got I think I'm in second gear. Just soft throttle, weight back. Trying to be really soft on that throttle so it don't break traction. Letting the bike move a little bit. It's a good challenging trail this one. Good practice trail for something. Bit of a step there. Starting to get a bit of arm pump there, a bit tight on the arms. Out of practice, second gear. What's lovely about this new 300 Rally on the L over the 250 is it just chugs a little bit better. There's a bit more meat on the throttle, so I'm not having to feather that clutch or go down to first. It's happy in second, which makes it more rideable. Obviously you can change the gearing on a CRF300 to mimic that effect, but then you're going to have it higher revving at the top end. So I think they did a good job with the changes in transmission for the 300. It's a long lane, longer than I remember it. This is a lane I've ridden before with a group on the posters. I think we broke a few on the way here, on the way up. Not the bikes, the riders. Good exercise. It's trying not to tense up, you know, and I'm as guilty as anyone for just tensing up. Because you're in a, I mean, let's be honest, we're in a slightly hazardous environment here. You're on your own, on a lane that might not see anybody else on it today. You're on a bike that's heavy. Ooh. And the last thing you want to do is have an accident. So your stress levels are bound to be up, and I've just lost my concentration there. So I'm just going to sit down. So I've switched, I guess, to a defensive position. I'm just sat down, I've got my left leg out, ready to just have it on that raised bank. I'm tired. I'm letting myself just sort of decompress a little bit. First gear, just dragging that clutch in first a little bit. Because this is actually, you probably won't show on the camera, but these are some of the trickiest riding these shallow ruts. Because they're not deep enough to hold you in them, but what they will do, if you go up the side of them or roll up the side, they'll spit the bike sideways very quickly. And so really a deep rut is much better than these shallow ruts. So I think you really just got to take it easy. And it's, again, just be light as you can, and as safe as you can, really. So I suppose that is a good way of defining up, standing up and sitting down. Sitting down is a defensive approach. Standing up is more of an attacking approach. I know there's going to be situations where that doesn't really work, but yeah, maybe it's one way of looking at it. Clutch in through the houses, nice and steady. That's it, lane done. Okay, another lane, another one of those longer, not too difficult ones. We're coming at it from the top end, so again it means a descent, so just controlling that speed. Remember, with a bike you've got to be in control of it, and one of the ways that people aren't in control or don't end up in control of the bike is by leaving that clutch out. They start to panic, and I see it when people do trails for the first time. They end up building too much speed because they don't want to stall the bike, so they give the bike too much throttle. And what they should be doing is pulling that clutch in, because as soon as that clutch is pulled in, you're in command of it. You can control it then, you can dictate its pace. But by leaving that clutch out, the bike's always going to be riding you. So I'm always playing on that clutch. That clutch is never left alone. I've always got two fingers over it, just modulating it. And then working a bit in harmony with the brakes. Do I need a bit of back brake? Third gear I think I'm in now. I'm actually in fourth gear. I'm in fourth gear, so I'm not riding a low gear here. I've got a little bit of engine braking with that, not a lot. I'm going to go down to third now because it's just tightening a little bit. Just seen some walkers, so I'm cautious that this could be a popular walking trail. Just hit a bit of bit of mud on the front end, nice pond there. Again, just careful of these shallow ruts, shallow narrow ruts. They are nemesis number one, certainly on a road-based trail tyre like this IRC. I've not let the pressures down. I have a tendency not to, for the simple fact is you're riding on the road as much as you are, or more than you are on the trail. And I guess I simply can't be bothered to inflate and deflate all the time. And I think leaving them inflated, it teaches you about grip, limits of grip a bit earlier than it does when you've optimised them with lower pressures. And a nice little lane though, this lovely little lane. Certainly coming the other way, you could just attack it that little bit more. Just following the flow, almost following the flow of the water. The water's running down here, so that's going to create the lowest point on the lane and probably the grippiest, safest, flattest part of the lane. So going through the water, especially when it's shallow like this, is going to be safer than riding the mud. But a lot of it with trail riding is just learning surface interaction and how different surfaces affect the bike's grip, traction, balance, stability. So we've got a bit of uphill here. You can get on the throttle, third gear. It's a good pulling gear, third gear. Got soft knees. Just letting the bike come up to me. Again, do I need firmer suspension? I don't think I do. That's coping quite nicely with that. Bit rocky, bit... They're coming out onto the road here. Always cautious when you come out. You don't come out with too much speed. We're back onto the road. And that's the lanes I know. Next we're going to aim for the lanes that I don't know.